And welcome back, everyone, to these Quirk creation series. I almost said Zombucto. It's no, we're starting the new, we're starting the other month's schedule. So yes, the My Hero Academia Quirk creation series, and this one falls under my private list. No one's given me Wolverine, but I have the own private list. Private's not the right word. Personal list I go to that I choose characters from, and Wolverine came up for that. Wolverine falls under the category of characters who trying to convert their power to a quirk is actually a little difficult. Because mutants in Marvel, by all accounts, quirks are mutations. That's what they are. People with quirks in My Hero Academia are mutants, and vice versa. Technically, mutations are quirks. But the difference is, quirks, as Bakugo describes them in the festival, are physical abilities. Every quirk has physical limitations to it. Every quirk does. If we just use a couple as an example here, even if you awaken them and like get rid of some of your weaknesses, Bakugo, for example, only can produce so much sweat to create explosions, and all that explosion is taxing. The vibration is taxing on his hands. Todoroki's another example. Using too much of his left half causes body temperature to drop. Using too much of his right half causes body temperature to rise, so he's got to try to balance that. Even One for All is you need to work your body to the point where you can use that power, and even if you do, you can still break your body. So every quirk in My Hero Academia does have some sort of limitation to it, physically speaking. But mutation within Marvel doesn't have that parameter necessarily. Cyclops has a limitation that he can't turn off his optic beams, but this is because he suffered a head injury as a child. By all accounts, he should actually, if he didn't suffer that head injury, he should be able to control his optic blast. In fact, I think there have been times where he has. Other characters like telepaths, for example, they certainly have limitations to what they can do, but that's simply through practice, level of power they have. That's all that is. Someone like Gambit, for example, can't use his kinetic energy on living beings. He can't charge them up. I say that to illustrate the point that mutation in Marvel does and can have limitations. However, others like Wolverine's regenerative capability, bone claws, all that, there's no real drawback to his mutation. His healing factor just works as a healing factor. And this poses a bit of a problem for My Hero, because My Hero is a series that's very rare on healing factor based quirks. The only ones we really know of are the regeneration that the Nomu got from the Doctor. The Doctor's quirk, which isn't regeneration so much as it basically slows down his aging, but at the cost of his mobility. Shigaraki did get a regeneration quirk, but it's unknown where they actually got it from. And even still, there's only so much damage his body can take. Wolverine is similar in the sense there's only so much damage his body can take, sure, but Wolverine is one of those individuals who there's no clear-cut explanation for how his body regenerates. It just regenerates. Healing, what was it? I can't remember the guy who broke down the science of why a lightsaber doesn't work the way it does in films, why you wouldn't want this power. I think he broke it down that in real world, or in our real world, a regeneration type ability only really works because you're taking in calories, taking in proteins, things along those lines to help repair your body. If you're not eating or consuming enough matter, protein, nutrients, all that to kind of replace what was lost, a healing factor really wouldn't work that well. You're going to be burning through your calories really quick. So that's why a healing factor really wouldn't work in the real world. Likewise, in My Hero, there's got to be some sort of limitation to how the healing abilities that we do see work. For example, Recovery Girl, Recovery Girls, I believe, has to do with something with converting calories or something like that, which is why she always gives you candy afterwards. Kind of like a Dementor thing, actually. Okay, you ran into a Dementor, eat the chocolate. So how would I convert Wolverine's mutation, including bone claws and feral animal traits, all that, because that's also his mutation, his quirk in this case. How would I try to convert that into an actual quirk. First off, we'd have to figure out a name that kind of encompasses all of that. I would say it is I'd say feral beast. His quirk, Wolverine. His codename Wolverine. His quirk, feral beast. Now, obviously, the Wolverine has two different not forms, but two different interpretations we could look at in this My Hero world. Him without the adamantium and him with the adamantium, because we know experimentations on people with quirks happens all the time. And someone with a healing factor like his, oh, you bet your ass they would want to do something like this to him. Turn him into the ultimate weapon. So, without the adamantium, his quirk would be the animalistic healing factor, the bone claws, all of that. But the question quickly becomes, what is the downside exactly? What is the limitation of the quirk? So I think it really leans down to, or really goes to, not leans down to, that's not a term. I think it really breaks down to, there's an actual similar character. Not like in terms of what he does, but in terms of what I'm kind of thinking. He looks like a dog, and like a werewolf, and I can't remember his name. But in essence, I feel like the longer a fight drags on with Wolverine, the more pain he's feeling, all that, the quicker he is to lose control, aka go into the berserker rage. That, I think, would be the ultimate problem with this quirk. It's not that the quirk has a limitation on how it functions. That's not the problem. The problem actually is the opposite. Because there's no limitation, because Wolverine is just taking so much damage and pain over the course of a battle, he ultimately could snap and go into the berserker rage where he doesn't recognize friend from foe. And in that scenario, Wolverine would become a liability. I imagine Wolverine would be something similar to Hawks, where he probably does government work. He's probably more like an assassin, or like the guy you send in to clear the field. So yeah, I think that works overall. In terms of him with the adamantium, I don't see the limitation being any different. The only difference is now he's practically indestructible in terms of My Hero's world. There are characters that can lend themselves to My Hero's world, to the My Hero world pretty well without being overpowered. Batman's a perfect example of this. Technically speaking, Batman has made like suits that could beat everyone in My Hero. But if we're going by like the resources he has in My Hero and throw Batman into the My Hero world, he is certainly a top tier threat even without a quirk, because frankly he can beat a lot of characters even without a quirk. He faces metahumans all the time, and he's already peak human. And a master martial arts, detective genius, all that stuff. Batman's one of those guys where, yeah, he's not going to break the verse by being thrown in there. Wolverine, however, he doesn't break the verse because he's not the top dog still in the universe. Like, All Might physically would wreck Wolverine. He'd still be able to knock him around pretty well. Or One for All, let me say that, rephrase that real quick. Fully like realized Shigaraki, they would all probably be able to take him on no problem. All Might, though, Wolverine's fought like the Hulk before, so All Might, it would not be something drastically new for him to fight. He's just a bit more composed and has a bit more sense of self than, say, the Hulk does. But honestly, like, there's no one in the My Hero world, save for a handful of people, Eri, if she were able to get control over her quirk. Overhaul's I gotta look Overhaul up again real quick, because Overhaul is a really gray area, because his whole ability is deconstruct and reconstruct things. But the question is how Overhaul is how exactly it works, because obviously adamantium is basically indestructible. This, I believe, also goes to the idea that while Shigaraki's decay ability would work on Wolverine's flesh, it would not work on adamantium, because adamantium's indestructible. It would have to be going down, not to the molecular manipulation. They have to like literally be breaking him down to that degree. And I don't think Shigaraki's quirk works quite that level. Literally because adamantium, like atoms, bond indefinitely. That's why it's like so tough. Let's see. Here's quirk. All right. Overall's quirk real quick here. It grants an ability to dismantle anything he touches, as well as reassemble it with any configuration he desires, effectively giving him full control over the matter. Okay, over the matter. Okay, so it does specify matter in this case, which means yes, theoretically he could be able to do that to Wolverine. Mind you, he'd have to get his hand on Wolverine first, and I have a feeling that hand, just as it happened in the series, would be gone before that happened. Or Wolverine would take it or Wolverine would just slice. Yeah, I think Wolverine would just he'd be dead before he ever touched Wolverine. I think. Shigaraki again. I think his decay quirk can't really work um on something like adamantium. Again, because adamantium is actually more or less indestructible. It's very difficult to gauge how these abilities work, but because Overhauls does specify matter, I would say Overhaul's quirk could work. I do not think Decay could work, though, at least not on the adamantium itself, which means, similar like with Nitro, Wolverine would probably get it'd be one of two scenarios. His flesh would all be decayed like Nitro, and then he'd regenerate from that and probably run Shigaraki through the heart or through the head or something. Or his healing factor, which is far more impressive than a lot of healing factors we've seen, at least in My Hero. Except for like the Gnome that literally just regenerated its limb very quickly. That's something Wolverine can't initially do. Wolverine, I think, has got better survivability though overall. Wolverine's healing factor might like be constantly fighting with the decay, so he's kind of stuck in a perpetual moment of decay, which would be terrible. But yeah, I mean, apart from like a couple characters, and I mean like maybe count them on your hand type characters, Wolverine would kind of murk most of the My Hero cast. Like maybe I can think of 10 characters if I tried who could straight up put him down, but it's difficult. Should know another flaw of this quirk would be similar to how his mutation in Marvel. He's constantly mutating. He's like not done mutating. His quirks, his mutation is actually constantly evolving. The adamantium actually halts the process because his healing factor is combating the metal poisoning he's getting from the adamantium all the time. So his healing factor is actually weakened compared to what it actually is at its max potential. But that would be a problem if we're dealing with a Wolverine with no adamantium. He would be a rare example of his quirk continually evolving and mutating him further, which means his healing factor would be nuts, but then you'd be getting close to that caveman kind of Wolverine, and then you'd be going kind of into the, heteromorph category, sort of quirk users. Either way, yeah, Wolverine is a weirdly difficult, like almost like Cyclops is easy. I just create Exotic Blast and I just say he can't turn it off, and there you go. Literally, Cyclops is a perfect example of a Marvel character you could just throw in with the same ability, call it the same thing, and give it the same weakness. Wolverine's not one of those people. You can't just say, hey, he's got the same weakness, because he doesn't inherently have a weakness. He's not like, he's not an Omega level mutant or anything like that, but he doesn't need to be either. So yeah, Wolverine's a little bit more tricky to do. What would you call his quirk? What would you do differently if you were to do anything differently? Let me know in the comments below. But until then, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you folks later.